Hello, everybody. I am David, and today I'm going to be talking about the ninth season in the Power Ranger franchise, Power Rangers Time Force. And this is actually my second favorite season of all time, so I'm happy to finally review it because I've reviewed everything from Mighty Morphin to Lightspeed so far. That's the first 8 seasons from 1993 to the year 2000. This series, Time Force, aired in 2001. And if you know me, if you follow me for a while and watch not just my Power Ranger reviews, my Flash reviews, my Flash reviews, you know that I love time travel. I say that all the time, a lot of the times in my Flash reviews, especially when time travel is done. And any other movies and shows that I love that I've done reviews for that involve time travel. And when it came to Power Rangers Time Force, you're getting one of my favorite kids shows of all time, that I grew up with, and now adding a time travel element to it. I think that's freaking fantastic. And for me anyways, I got something special. So let's start off with this. What did I think of the Rangers themselves in this season? I actually think each of the individual Rangers are really enjoyable. Obviously, the three that stand out the most are Wes, the Red Ranger, Jen, the Pink Ranger, and Eric, the Quantum Ranger, who are all three of them are shades of red. There's 2 reds and 1 pink. And, Wes and Eric had this little rivalry going on. And with Jen, she was the romantic interest to Wes. She was also probably more of the I would say Wes and Jen shared the most focus together since they were romantically involved. But the thing about Jen is that her fiance in the very first episode was an ancestor to Wes, because Jen, Lucas, Katie, and Tripp, who are the 4 Rangers from the year 3000, they go back in time to the year 2001 to try to capture this mutant criminal known as Rancic, after Rancic kills her fiance, Jen's fiance, and they need someone to take up the morpher of the Red Ranger, and that turns out to be Wes, the descendant of Alex. I really like that relationship between Jen and Wes. I think Irene Cahill and Jason Font are both really good actors. I think they really led the show into what it is. And Dan Southworth as the Quantum Ranger, I think he was a really good actor too. By the way, if you ever meet Dan Southworth, he's one of the funniest actors from Power Rangers. I think he is outstandingly hilarious in person. I got to go to the first 2 Power Morphicons where he was at. And I remember he was telling some really funny stories from behind the scenes of what happened, not just in Time Force, but in Forever Red also, and how he used to be a stunt double in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue as the Blue Ranger in that season. So him becoming an actual Ranger, and one of the most badass Rangers in my opinion, really shows that, that he finally got to be the Ranger that he was born to play. And I think it was a great choice because I consider him one of the best Rangers of all time. We also have Tripp, who he's kind of like the comedic relief of the Ranger team. He's not like an annoying type of character like some later seasons would have, where the comedic Ranger is more of the annoying one of the group. I think Tripp was handled really well. He's more of an innocent, funny type of Ranger. He's not the strongest Ranger of the team, but I really like Tripp. And his relationship with Circuit, who is pretty much the Alpha 5 of the group. Circuit is a robotic character who gives the Rangers the information they need to fight the monsters. Or if something changes, he can warn them, hey, this is not supposed to happen until a couple more years. So I really like that. I think Lucas and Katie, though, the Blue and Yellow Ranger, are the ones that will probably be the least forgotten. I thought they were okay. I think Lucas actually shines a little bit more in the second half of Time Force. Specifically in the episode, it's towards the end, Nadira's dream date, where one of the main villain's daughter falls and has a huge crush on the Blue Ranger for saving her. And Rancic, the main villain, decides to go after the Rangers, but leave the blue one alone because, my daughter, if the bad guy's daughter has a crush on someone, he's gonna make sure his daughter gets what he wants. So it was a pretty one of the funnier episodes of the series. Time Force, for the most part, was pretty dramatic. A lot of the time, some people would call it melodrama. I actually really liked it. I don't care if it was a soap opera or whatever you want to call it. I think it was some really good storytelling there for a kids show anyways. And the villains themselves are actually really interesting too, because they're not like monsters like they were in the past. Monsters or aliens, or in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, they were demons. This time they're mutants from the year 3000 that were prejudiced and ridiculed upon because they were different. And there's actually an episode of Time Force where Tripp protects a mutant, a good mutant, who didn't really do anything wrong, and Eric, the Quantum Ranger, is out to bring this mutant down, and he's going to destroy the mutant, to kill him. But Tripp stands up for him, and Eric, is kind of racist against mutants, and Tripp, who is an alien from another planet, shows this gem that he had in his head, because Tripp he's from a planet where I guess these gems give him he can allow to it's like telekinesis, not telekinesis, but a telepath. He's a telepath where he can see things where he's not at, it gives him powers, let's just put it that way. And so when he shows Eric that, Eric kind of pulls back a little bit because, okay, even though Tripp is different also, Eric knows he's a good guy. So that kind of gets him to change on his ways of looking at mutants and things that are different. It was actually a pretty good episode when you think about the subject matter that it was trying to take on. Power Rangers isn't perfect when it comes to its writings, but when I feel when it hits right. Rancic, for those of you that don't know, is the main villain of the series, and he actually played the actor's name is Vernon Wells, and he played one of the villains in Mad Max Road Warrior with Mel Gibson. He was one of the main villains, and there is a shout out to his character in one episode called Movie Madness, which is a really fun episode. I totally recommend it to check that one out if you want to check out Time Force if you've never seen it before. To me, Rancic is a great villain because he can be pretty freaky at times, and then at times he can be really hammy and over the top. I kind of cringed a little bit when Vernon Wells goes over the top with Rancic, but when he's more level-headed and more calm and relaxed, I think he's more of a threatening villain. I put him up there with villains like Lord Zed or Astronema or Ecliptor or Darkonda, some of the all-time great villains in my opinion. Rancic is definitely up there, and I like the way he is portrayed, except when he goes hammy. Nadira can be a little bit annoying. Nadira is the daughter of Rancic. She can be a little annoying at times because she whines a lot, but then again, she is a spoiled brat, so it makes sense. We also got Frax, who is a robot who used to be a human, who tried to help Rancic back in the future, and Rancic didn't know this, but Rancic betrayed him after Frax helped him, and he almost died. But Frax was able to rebuild himself. He went by another name before, and he was able to rebuild himself using robotic pieces because he built the robot army that Rancic uses throughout the entire season. So there's actually a really interesting revenge story later on in the season that I thought was interesting. This was, Time Force was around that time where the show was trying to make more dynamic villains that were more well-rounded, where if you watch the earlier seasons of the show, like Mighty Morphin through Turbo, I feel like the villains were more two-dimensional, but once you get into space and onward, the villains become a little bit more interesting. There is a team-up in the season, but I will say that the team-up kind of is a little bit disappointing. It's with Lightspeed Rescue, the season that came before Time Force, but it feels pretty rushed, and it feels like it's been done for the sake of just having another team up because we're trying to make this a tradition. Unfortunately, I will say, though, if you are a fan of Lightspeed Rescue, it is fun seeing those characters again. Just don't go in there expecting the best team up of all time. The story itself is... I actually like the story itself, where the Rangers have to go back in time, capture this criminal, and try to bring him back to the year 3000. There's some twists and turns here and there throughout the season, and I will say there are some conclusions that I don't know if I would have taken that approach, but I did feel satisfied after it ended. And if you are not satisfied, no fret, because there is a really good team up with the Time Force Rangers the following season in Wild Force, where they kind of give you an alternate ending on maybe a more satisfying ending, I'll say, on how Time Force does it. But you got to give them applause for at least doing something that wasn't necessarily the ending you thought it was going to. Now, I've seen some fans in the past complain about Time Force on how it copies the Japanese series. This was the first season where I've seen a lot of fans say this is the one where the writers started to get a little lazy and started copying the Japanese version more. They say the first half of the season is more or less original to its Sentai counterpart, but they say the second half of the season, after Clash for Control Part 1 and 2, that's where they start to do straight-on adaptions of the Japanese series. And as someone who never seen many, now I've been watching the Super Sentai stuff because now they've been releasing them on DVD here in North America. But before, I didn't know how to watch Super Sentai. And so I didn't understand what people were talking about when they were saying, oh, it's copying. And like, yeah, okay, I get it, they're copying, but like, what are they copying? I never seen the original translation, so I don't know what exactly they're copying. And so someone on this side who has never seen that version of Time Force, for me, it didn't affect my viewing. I get it for other people. It's like reading a book and then seeing the adaptation of a movie. But for me, that didn't affect my judgment. And for me, that's why I really love Time Force and think it's a great series. But I get the other argument too. It just, for me, it didn't affect me that way. And I'm sorry for anybody that was affected that way that thinks differently, you know? And that's the great thing about Power Rangers. We can all have a season that we really love. And I've seen people that have said that out of all the seasons that have copied the Sentai storylines, Time Force is one of the best ones. So that's a good thing to note, I guess. So guys, I would totally recommend Time Force if you've never seen it. I think it's a good standalone season. Aside from the crossover with Lightspeed Rescue, there's nothing else that really connects it to the overall Power Ranger series. I mean, yeah, every Power Ranger series is connected in some way or another, but as a standalone season as well, you can avoid the crossover with Lightspeed and still manage to enjoy every other episode, I think. Of course, you're going to get your crappy episodes once in a while, but that's normal for Power Rangers. Power Rangers, it's a kid's show, and once in a while, they're going to get lazy and say, this episode. I don't know if they say that, but, you know. So I'm going to end this here. I think it's a great season, my second favorite season of all time. Hopefully I'll get to Wild Force and won't take long doing that review. Maybe I'll get to it next week or the week after. We'll see. And until next time, guys, like this video, subscribe to my channel, especially if you are a huge Power Ranger fan, because I'm a huge Power Ranger fan too. I go to Ranger Board, so if you go to Ranger Board too, you probably know me. And I already said subscribe. Okay, and until next time, guys, take care.